had our first memorial service in Iraq, when we had hundreds of soldiers from the Hawaii Army National Guard's 29th Brigade Combat Team gathered in a memorial service, we paid our respects to the empty boots, the empty helmet, and the rifle. For those of us who have seen what the effects, what the consequences, and what the cost of war is, the qualities of judgment and foresight in our commander-in-chief are paramount. Bernie Sanders voted against the Iraq war.
The question, Mr. Speaker, is not whether we like Saddam Hussein or not. The question is whether he represents an imminent threat to the American people and whether a unilateral American invasion of Iraq will do more harm than good.
Bernie Sanders will defend our country and take the trillions of dollars that are spent on these interventionist, regime change, unnecessary wars and invest it here at home.
I am concerned about the problems with so-called unintended consequences. Who will govern Iraq when Saddam Hussein is removed? And what role will the U.S. play in an ensuing civil war that could develop in that country? Will moderate governments in the region with large Islamic fundamentalist populations be overthrown and replaced by extremists?
He has foresight when making these most critical decisions that affect us all about war or peace.
Now, you are saying that you think she endorsed Bernie Sanders wearing that uniform?
She did. I mean, she had, no, it says it's all put together while she's wearing uniform, and it says paid for by Bernie Sanders. That's a whole, like, commercial, I guess, a whole endorsement. You can't do that.
Okay. Okay, so in this episode, we're going to talk about Tulsi Gabbard and why Jay here and why I think a lot of Republicans do not trust Tulsi Gabbard, especially with the role of Director of National Intelligence. So, Jay, what is your biggest criticism of Tulsi Gabbard?
Her using her military uniform to endorse a socialist. That is my biggest criticism. And it goes along with her also endorsing Joe Biden. And the last couple of days, I've really listened to a lot of Tulsi Gabbard before and after, Democrat, and now she's a Republican. And it's just a complete dichotomy. And I understand people wake up. But if my husband wore his uniform and he endorsed somebody, was in a commercial, what would happen to him? He wouldn't be wearing that uniform anymore. But she got away with it because she was a Democrat. So us being in the military community, and she was a Democrat, and she got away with it. And that really chapped my hide big time. So how was that okayed? Lieutenant Colonel Schiller, who was in the Marines, and he came out right after he was in his uniform, and he had disparaging remarks about Biden and the Afghan withdrawal in 2021, and he got court-martialed. Now, she wasn't saying disparaging marks in this video, but she did use her military uniform to say disparaging remarks in this. I'm not talking about this video specifically. There's another video. It's just using the military uniform is against the UCMJ. Bottom line.
I think it's safe to say that for you, Tulsi Gabbard wasn't on your radar until that commercial in 2016.
Absolutely.
So after that, she's run for president in 2020, and now she's endorsing Trump. So from there, what else have you uncovered about Tulsi Gabbard that really makes you very concerned about her? In particularly the role that Trump wants to put her in.
Okay, well, I guess we can start from now, present, and
Yeah.
go backwards down the
All right,
rabbit
let's
hole?
start there. That's a great, that's a
Let's
great
follow
place.
the white rabbit. Um, so DNI, that's huge. Like, was she a CTR? No, she wasn't some sort of cryptological technician. So she
Mhm.
was a medic, and I believe that she was also played another role, like her MOS.
Okay.
But I have a real problem with her being the director of national intelligence. And I mean, I would, in my civil capacity, vote for my own husband to do that.
Yeah.
That's been his entire career, his intelligence. He collected, he recorded, he has worked in skiffs his whole career. And I'm
So
not saying that she
you,
hasn't been in any skiffs,
right. So you
but
feel like she's maybe unqualified.
I do.
And then I want to know, what do you know about her, the allegations that she has met Bashir al-Assad? What do you know about that?
Only from what the lamestream media has said. Now, I'm not calling her a Russian asset and what the Democrats have done to her since she left the Democrat Party. I think that's horrible what they did to her. I mean, she has served our country, and I appreciate that. And I'm sure she's more of a woman than I'll ever be. But
Mhm.
I just want to put this on all y'all's radar. I don't think she's qualified. She's used her military uniform not once, but twice and 3 times, to my knowledge, to speak and endorse, to speak out against, and then also to endorse a candidate. Has she woken up? Okay, yes, she's woken up. I think that's great. So Bernie Sanders, just the video that you saw, and then she endorsed Biden, Joe Biden,
Mhm.
and in 2020, and that's a real problem for me because Joe Biden, he was the vice president of the United States with Obama. And he's a guy who lied and plagiarized speeches over and over, so much so that in his presidential campaign, he had to bow out in 1988
Mhm.
and in 2006.
Yeah.
He also, in 2020 and I believe 2019, plagiarized again Build Back Better. Where did that come from? That came from the UN. And another point with Joe Biden, and she again endorsed this person. She says that how much she loves her brothers and sisters in uniform and it's very important to her. Let's talk about Raven 2-3, the Biden 4. As vice president in 2010, Biden made sure that 4 honorably discharged military veterans who were working as contractors were charged in the 2007 Nusser Square incident. And you want to go down the rabbit hole? Well, I will go down the rabbit hole
Yeah,
with
but
you in another
what does
time.
that have to do with Tulsi Gabbard?
She endorsed him. That's what
Okay.
has to do with him, with her, because it's her judgment. And I was just listening to her on Sean Ryan show, and she said, critical thinking, don't just vote blue all the way down. How can she endorse Joe Biden when he threw those 4 vets under the bus to appease
Mhm.
Iraq?
In all fairness, she did run against him.
She did, but then she endorsed him. And she's all for the military. She says, I'm a soldier. I love my brothers and sisters in uniform. Well, then how can
So
you support somebody like that,
so
that
for
would do
you,
that?
you don't believe, so is it fair to say that you don't believe that Tulsi Gabbard has had enough of an awakening, or is your issue with Tulsi Gabbard more the fact that Trump wants to put her in a high level position and you think that maybe she should go somewhere else and do
She should go
something else?
she should go to another bus stop. She should go somewhere
Yeah.
else.
Because my problem with
Yes.
Tulsi Gabbard, with her as director of national intelligence, is her her, how do I want to put this? She hasn't been a Trump supporter for that long. Okay. So I have an issue with that. I'm of the vein that Trump should appoint people who are loyal to him, that will carry out his agenda. So you don't have all the backstabbing and the backbiting when it comes to what we saw in 2016 with his first administration. I don't want to see that again. And having Tulsi Gabbard as the head of national intelligence, I think that there is a lot of issues with our national intelligence apparatus and how it has been weaponized against the American people. And I don't trust Tulsi Gabbard to be the head of national intelligence. Now, if he wants to put her as an advisory role or on the Security Council or, you know,
Or the
national
VA.
advisor or something like that,
Right.
I'm all for that. But to have her in charge of all of these intelligence agencies, when we know that they've been doing very shady things and they have been conducting shady practices and secretive practices against American citizens, I have a problem with that because we don't know Tulsi Gabbard as well as I think we have been led to believe. And I do have issues with that. Now, I don't necessarily agree with you. I wouldn't look at that ad and say she's endorsing Bernie Sanders in her uniform. I think she's clearly making a pro-military stance with his, anti-interventionism, anti-war, which I think Trump also agrees on. All of the things that that Bernie Sanders said in that video, Trump agrees with 100%. When
Those
you
are
talk
one
about
line
policy.
items, though. That is just a one item. And she and Bernie, absolutely no unneeded wars. Absolutely. But
Yeah. Now, do
that's,
I think that Bernie Sanders is a socialist? Do I think that Tulsi Gabbard has completely abandoned that socialist philosophy? I don't. I don't think she
I
has.
don't either. Yeah.
I am very distrustful of her. I do have questions around her meeting with Bashar al-Assad. However, it looks like he's about to get thrown out of power here with the military coup going on in Syria right now. So what does all of this mean? We're in a very fragile state as a nation. Our national security right now is at a very fragile point in our history. We are on the cusp of a kinetic World War III, which I believe that we are already fighting a cyber World War III in so many different ways. There is a fight between globalism right now and nationalism. And do we want to have such an important role like the Director of National Intelligence when our nation's foreign policy is so vulnerable, when the state of the world is so fragile? Do we want to have someone like Tulsi Gabbard as the Director of National Intelligence? I personally am not comfortable with that. That's my thoughts on Tulsi Gabbard. Okay, so you're referring to her there. You said that there's been multiple incidents, and one of those incidents where she is endorsing a politician in uniform, we're talking about is one of these right here. So explain what this article is.
Okay, she's not endorsing anybody, and this is, posted on December 2021. So she's going after the top. I'm sure she's going after Biden while in uniform, and I completely agree with her. But again, if my husband did that, he'd be court-martialed. You cannot do that. And as we scroll down in the article, it gives you the reference why. I mean, if you don't know what the UCMJ is, and a lot of civilians don't, the Uniform Court of Military Justice, we will read why it's not allowed. But you can't do this. But what happened to her? Nothing, to my knowledge. And again, it's the Democrat elite. She gets away with it and then gets to continue in service.
I don't know. I don't think she's part of the Democrat elite when they're trying to bury her with,
Well, this was before she left. This was before she left.
Right.
The Democrat Party. This is 2021. So she was still full-on ideological Democrat. They were her, she was their darling.
Well,
I'm sure after this,
2021, I mean, I think 2020, when Hillary Clinton labels her as a Russian asset.
But she's still being protected. Nothing happened to her. This doesn't make any sense.
Your husband who's active duty, my husband who's active duty, he can't go out and campaign in uniform. He can't go do those things. However, how is it that Tulsi Gabbard can be a congresswoman?
Now let's go back, and
Because I will say, I don't think that the standards for the National Guard are the same as for active duty military.
It's still the uniform. I mean, I think
I
it
don't
still falls.
disagree with you, but
Yeah. So she was a member of the U.S. House from 2013 to January 2021. Okay, now it's December of 2021. She was also a member of the Hawaiian Army National Guard from 2003 to 2020. And she transitioned to the Army Reserve Unit. So I believe she is in the Army Reserve Unit right now. Or I'm sorry, in 2021. Bottom line is she's in her uniform saying things that she's not supposed to say while in uniform. Is it because she's so upset? Like Lieutenant Colonel Schiller, he did that in uniform. He shouldn't have done it. He was discharged. He was court-martialed. And I know that he was active duty Marines. And task and purpose specifically says you are not allowed to do that while in uniform. Is it because she got so mad she just popped off? Well, that's somebody I definitely don't want in charge. I mean, you have to have your emotions in check.
yeah, you do. So, I mean, where do we go from here? What are we going to do with Tulsi Gabbard now?
Let's read the article. Former Congresswoman Tulsi Gabbard, an Army Reserve Lieutenant Colonel, may have once again broken military rules on political activities by making a video in which she wore her U.S. military uniform while accusing self-serving politicians and others of wanting to start World War III. Sure, she's right, but she shouldn't be doing it in uniform. And this is not her first rodeo. And it's removed.
This post,
yeah,
by
it's
the way.
no longer available.
Yeah, she deleted this post.
I've
is no
checked.
longer available.
That's right. And if you scroll down, it was not immediately clear whether Gabbard could face any disciplinary or administrative recriminations for her video. Why not? And it says clearly, when asked about Gabbard's comments, a Pentagon official sent Task and Purpose a copy of the Defense Department's policy that says troops must refrain from participating in any political activity while in military uniform. How does she get away with this? She clearly, so I have to say that in all of the videos that I have watched, and I have just done a deep Tulsi dive in the last several days on this Thanksgiving weekend. She's like, I'm a soldier. You know, I love my brothers and sisters. I've been in military for over 2 decades. Well, if you've been in military for over 2 decades, then you should know the rules, right? Is that too much to ask?
Mm-hmm.
You should know the rules. It doesn't matter who's in charge. And I mean, I agree with what she said, but is it okay to just throw out the rules and do whatever you want? No, it's not. Is that what she's going to do if she ever, God help us, gets appointed DNI? I don't want her to be in that position. And there's also examples right in front of you: Doug Collins, Harold Arrels, Alex Stovall. You guys can read this. We'll put the links down in the description so that you can peruse this. You can go down the rabbit hole in your own time. And it's just, it makes me really angry that she's allowed to get away with it. And then, like you said earlier, she's a Democrat, and then she jumps on the Trump train all of a sudden. Well, she had disparaged Trump multiple times in the past. And now she's getting disparaged from the left. Well, how does it feel? And like I said, thank you for your service. But we're not going to blindly follow somebody that says, I'm a Democrat and now my eyes are open. I still believe that she's has her ideology in the left. And I just want people to know what she's done and who she is. And maybe she is waking up slowly, bit by bit. But why wasn't she held to the same standard? And she does talk about that in other interviews, that nobody else is held to those same standards. And she talks about accountability. Well, where was the accountability when she was in her military uniform? Where is that accountability?
Well, I mean, I would say the fact that her video is taken down, I'm sure that there was an inquiry, if not an investigation. If not her legal team saying, hey, you need to take that video down.
But like I said, if it was an enlisted, they would throw the book at him.
So is that your biggest gripe with Tulsi Gabbard?
There's two. One,
Okay,
that
what's
she
the
did
other one?
that, and two, that she seemed to get away with it.
So it bugs you that she's been able to get off the hook for this stuff.
Absolutely. And then I have not heard in any interview, and I grant you, I did not read her book, which came out this year, I believe, in April. I did not read her book. Pinpointing that issue. Yes, I did this in uniform. Well, I was pissed off and I did it anyway. Well, you know what the rules are.
I'm going to disagree with you on these points that you're making, because for me, it's not just Tulsi Gabbard that does this. Clearly, we've seen other members that have done the same thing, and I think when it comes to the military, when it comes to military members, when it comes to congressmen who are still active, whether in the National Guard, it is obvious that it is something that is just, it's natural. When you are a member of the military, it is who you are. It becomes part of your identity. And I think there's a reason why people just get a slap on the wrist for it. Okay. Because they do. They just get a slap on the hand. I would love for you to give me examples of people who have gotten kicked out of the military for coming out and endorsing a candidate
In uniform?
in uniform.
I don't know, but I will do some digging.
Yeah,
I'm not
because
saying kicked
it
out.
seems like one of these things where it's like, yeah, we don't want you to do this, but we won't completely destroy your military career unless you go to a Trump rally in uniform or you do something incredibly blatant as that. Now, go on TikTok, you'll see a lot of guys in uniform espousing ideology.
And I have a real problem with that.
And I have a real problem with that too.
Yeah.
However, Tulsi Gabbard sharing that she thinks that we're on the cusp of World War III, I agree with her. I think that the military shares a lot of those sentiments. Should she have posted online? No, she's a sitting congresswoman, so she has to be definitely more careful. But this is stuff that we see all the time with people who do this on their with uniforms. Now, I
Yeah.
will tell you, there is something that I would love to do a video with you on that I have a really big problem with, is military influencers. I have a huge problem with these guys that come on and they create these accounts, but they are in uniform, goofing off, making fun of our military, influencing our military. And it does look all fun. And I've laughed at some of the videos, but there is a deeper issue going on here. Okay. And I, for one, believe that the military is using certain people, certain accounts as a recruiting tool.
On a CCP app, I know. TikTok.
So,
Yeah.
should they be allowed to do that? Should you be allowed to post anything in your uniform? Because there have been videos of those guys moving into very shady areas when it comes to politics and national security.
You're not supposed to, though. It's very clearly outlined in the UCMJ. No, you
Right.
cannot do that.
So, like I said, the UCMJ is just a slap on the hand if you get caught.
If you get
So
reported.
is your issue with Tulsi Gabbard, or is
Yeah.
it with the fact that the military does not treat the UCMA across the board the same?
UCMJ.
UCMJ across the board the same? Because that's my
Well,
issue.
yeah, of course. I mean, that's what she was talking about on the Sean Ryan show, that nobody's accountable, nobody's responsible. People can do whatever
I
they
agree.
want.
And I
And
think
she did. But
right.
my problem is saying that, and then she did whatever she wanted to do. Like I said, put her on another bus stop, not in charge of the DNI, but I really did have a big problem when she came out and endorsed Bernie Sanders, and they used her military uniform. Like, he's a socialist. So that was really upsetting to me. And again, if my husband did that, he'd be in big trouble. So why don't they get in trouble? And it's not like it's a small little account on TikTok or
Well, because
Instagram. She's a name. People
right.
know her.
Well, they had a disclaimer over her in uniform.
It doesn't matter. You have to use a magnifying glass to read that.
I guess we're gonna have to agree to disagree on some of these things with Tulsi Gabbard. But what I do agree with you on, I have a lot of concerns with her being the head of DNI. I don't have any concern with her if she wants a position in the Trump administration. I just think the position he wants to give her is not the right one for her, not the right one for our country.
Agreed.
Well, thank you guys so much for joining us in this discussion about Tulsi Gabbard. I guess we're going to have to see what happens. Until then, we will see you in the next episode.